Good afternoon, everyone. I'm responsible for the Inquiring Minds monthly speaker series under the auspices of Toronto Mensa. And I warmly welcome you to this Zoom edition of Inquiring Minds. My name is Kathleen Smith. It is my pleasure to introduce today's speaker. Ricker Choi holds a master's in business administration, and he's a certified chartered financial analyst and financial risk manager with a successful career in Toronto. Ricker began studying the piano at the age of 13 after he and his parents immigrated from Hong Kong. At the age of 18, he completed the ARCT diploma in piano performance from the Royal Conservatory in Toronto. The fact that Ricker went from the beginning to the ARCT in 5 years is truly remarkable. Not only that, but it is common knowledge that if someone wants to perform piano at a professional level, which Ricker is perfectly capable of, they should start lessons at a very young age. Whereas in Ricker's case, he was already a teenager when he started. Ricker Choi has performed in festivals and recitals in Toronto and internationally, and that includes the Four Seasons Center in Toronto. He has won numerous awards, including second prize from the Berlin International Amateur Piano Competition in 2010, and third prize from the Concours International de Grands Amateurs de Piano in 2012. His most memorable performances were at the Berlin Philharmonie, Grosser Saal, and in Paris at the Salle Gaveau, both of which are major halls. Ricker Choi has composed the Hong Kong Rhapsody and has been performing it in various countries of the Western world, leading a protest movement in support of restoring democracy in Hong Kong. Ricker is also a prolific visual artist, and his protest art has been exhibited in Hong Kong, New York, London, England, Toronto, Edmonton, Dublin, Tokyo, and Prague. Ricker Choi's visual art and his piano composition, Hong Kong Rhapsody, have been labeled by the Chinese Communist Party as separatist. And in 2022, a Chinese state-funded media accused him of infringing the national security law, essentially threatening arrest if he returns to Hong Kong or enters China. For the title of today's presentation, Ricker has chosen Hong Kong Rhapsody, Cultural Identity and Activism in Classical Piano Music. Welcome, Ricker Choi.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Kathleen. Thanks so much for having me today.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So do I start the presentation?
Just go right into it, yeah.
Okay, so let me share my screen. I have prepared a presentation. Hold on a second. Screen. Do you see the screen share?
Yes, very clearly.
Okay, I'll just jump right in. So this presentation will be in 3 parts. First part is about myself, my background. Second part is a little bit about Hong Kong, because unless we have some context, then the Hong Kong Rhapsody cannot be really understood. And then the third part will be a walkthrough of my Hong Kong Rhapsody, the compositional inspiration derived from the classical piano tradition. So I was born in Hong Kong in 1975, and this is mom and me actually in Hong Kong. You can see there's a piano on the right, and actually she was the first, I guess, main influence on me with music. At home, she would often play some classical music and also play some Hong Kong pop music on the piano. And then when I started my high school in Hong Kong, which is actually, I was 11, grade 7 in Hong Kong is high school. The school asked us to pick an instrument. We must play an instrument and perform it in front of the class every year. So I actually picked this instrument on the upper right corner called Yi Wu. It's a like 2-string vertical instrument. I did not pick piano because I thought I didn't like playing it. But it was in this school that I started hearing a lot of classical music on different instruments like string players, and also a lot of very advanced Beethoven and Chopin. And the next clip is actually a piece I heard in this school, which really caught my attention. I'll play a little bit of it. So that was Chopin Revolutionary Etude. I heard this when I was only 11 years old, and I didn't know anything about the background that Chopin was in exile while Poland was under occupation by Russia. So I didn't know any of this. And it's very later on that I realized this was Chopin's musical reaction to the 1831 failed Polish insurrection against Russia rule. So somehow, when at an early age, my attraction to music that is, you can say, revolutionary and political in themes was already in me. And then in 1988, I immigrated with my parents to Canada. And that's when I started having piano lesson because school here is a little bit more, I guess, easier in terms of management of time. There's less schoolwork and I can, have time to practice more and have formal lessons. And then in 2005, I started to organize fundraising concerts for different organizations. For example, the poster on the left is for Oxfam Canada, and then the one on the right is for China Earthquake. And I keep doing this fundraising concerts once or even twice a year. And in year 2022, the poster on the right is my first concert for Hong Kong. And here are some photos. Kathleen was mentioning me, I performed at Berlin Philharmonie. So these are some of the photos. I was playing Totentanz with the orchestra. And then this is me in Toronto playing Rachmaninoff's Second Piano Concerto at the CCC Center. So that was an excerpt from a piece I wrote called In You, the Earth, as a tribute to my late mother who passed away in 2018. So it's a piece that I wrote utilizing the things I learned about classical piano music tradition. You'll hear another piece, very short excerpt from another piano piece I wrote called Ariel. So in these pieces, you can hear actually, I use a very short motif and then expand it into a longer section. So in Ariel, it's just literally 3 notes. And then in You, the Earth is 5 notes. So it's kind of very similar to what Beethoven did. I read a book about Beethoven Symphony No. 5, the first movement, the whole book on that first movement, how he composed it, and was really inspired by how using short motif can expand into large scale pieces. And you'll hear that in my Hong Kong Rhapsody later on. So if you'd like to hear more about on my music, you can go to my YouTube channel, just search Ricker Choi. You'll find the 2 clips for the full piece, Ariel, and also In Memory of My Mom, Lily Choi. You'll see a lot of photos of her and the old Hong Kong in that video. As Kathleen said, I also like to paint. So in 2013, I started doing painting. This is acrylic on canvas. You can see my paintings, either abstract or landscape, in general are quite dark. You can see in feeling. And somehow I think that's, as I said, the seed in me of seeing the world through a very more dark lenses, and also a little bit more revolutionary type of feeling in some of the paintings. Like, for example, let's say the one on the right. Okay, so that is a short part about my brief background before I started to become an activist. I didn't really pay much attention to Hong Kong at all before 2019, but in 2019, the anti-extradition protest happened, which I'll speak a little bit more later. And then it moved me tremendously when I see like millions of Hong Kong people rise up and try to stop this extradition law from being passed. And the protest lasted for a whole year. I expressed my emotions through arts and music. I created more than 100 paintings. I wrote Hong Kong Rhapsody, and I also participated in organized concert to help fundraise for different organizations for Hong Kong. So this is a collage of just a small portion of the paintings I did. Each one is a separate work, acrylic on canvas, portraying different scenes and my emotions towards the protest. And I started writing Hong Kong Rhapsody in 2019, around, I think, September time. And what I did is kind of like what Chopin and Franz Liszt and other classical composers did, is borrowing melodies from our own cultures and use it to rearrange for the piano to champion our own political causes. So for Chopin, he borrowed a lot of mazurka and polonaises, produced these while he was in exile, and then performed in concerts to advocate for the Polish nationalistic cause, while Franz Liszt similarly borrowed from the Hungarian traditions, the melodies, wrote, I think, around 18 or 19 Hungarian rhapsodies and performed it while wearing Hungarian traditional costume to advocate for the Hungarian cause. So similarly, I borrowed these 5 tunes from the 2019 movements. I'll talk a little bit more about each later on. And so my connection with Hong Kong people started with me doing arts, and then them responding to my art and music. So for example, in 2020, this school of dance in Taipei National University of Arts contacted me and they wanted to do a choreograph using my music. And then I often bring my art to the streets, and on the streets protests in Toronto, I met a lot of like-minded people. And that's how I get deeper and deeper involved in the protest movements. And then Hong Kong people reacted very strongly to my paintings. Like even in Hong Kong in 2020, they did an exhibition at the Chinese University of Hong Kong. And it was very brave of them to do this because the national security law had just been passed and they still did this. But this was the only time they are able to do this. From then on, everything is banned. Anyone try remotely to just even hold up a painting like this on the street will be arrested. And my works have been exhibited, as Kathleen said, in different countries. Even recently, it was displayed in front of the EU Parliament at the top left-hand corner. And these are just some of the articles the Chinese state media have been writing about me for the last few years. In May, they released more articles claiming I have infringed the national security law. So in here, I just want to pause and just talk very quickly for friends who are in Toronto that I'm going to have another concert for Hong Kong on November 2nd, 7 p.m. at the Meridian Art Center in North York at George Weston Recital Hall. It's 818 seats, and the theme is People United. I'll speak a bit more about People United, the piece itself. But the concert is not just for Hong Kong. There's going to be using music, arts, and also performance art from Loretta Lau to pay tribute to China and also to Iran and Ukraine. There'll be also a Ukrainian soprano, Antonina Ermolenko, and also Ukrainian pianist, Oksana Han. They're also going to be performing some music of Ukraine. So there'll be multimedia, multicultural events. And we want to try to fundraise for the Hong Kong political prisoners. And 30% will go to Amnesty International. So I'll be projecting photos from 2019's protest while I perform Hong Kong Rhapsody. There'll be performance art elements in this, and there'll be video projections as well. So for those who are in Toronto, or let your friends in Toronto know about this concert. To find out more, you can go to richardchoi.com/concerts. So I'm going to just very briefly and quickly talk a little bit about Hong Kong, so that you have a better appreciation of my Hong Kong Rhapsody later on. So Hong Kong was given to British in 1842 under the Treaty of Nanking, when the British won the Opium War against China, which is the Qing dynasty at that time. And under this agreement, actually, Hong Kong Island and Kowloon were ceded to the British perpetually. So meaning the British supposedly is to have Kowloon and Hong Kong Island forever. And the remainder of the Hong Kong area, which is New Territories, Lantau Island, and the outlying islands, for 99 years lease. So under the British rule, Hong Kong changed from a fishing village to entrepot, to industrial and manufacturing center, and eventually to an international financial center. So under the 1984, when the British and the Chinese government started talking about the future of Hong Kong, because supposedly 1997, the lease would end for part of the territory. So the Chinese government agreed to keep Hong Kong with the existing structure of government and economy in place for 50 years after 1997. Essentially, for Hong Kong people, we interpret this as keeping our existing rule of law, keeping our freedom that we have enjoyed under the British. And also recall that I was saying Kowloon and Hong Kong Island supposedly were ceded to British in perpetuity. But however, the Chinese regime under Deng Xiaoping actually was threatening to invade Hong Kong if the British doesn't return even those areas to China. And Margaret Thatcher at that time decided that Hong Kong is not really defensible, the UK is so far away, so they just decide to give the whole territory back to China, even though the agreement is to keep Hong Kong Island and Kowloon. But then very shortly, after around 20 or 10 or so years, we see the Chinese regime try to remove the freedom from Hong Kong and not keeping their promise. So for example, 2014, the chief editor of a very prominent newspaper called Ming Pao in Hong Kong, who is critical of China, he was stabbed almost to death on the streets by one of the Chinese Communist Party, paid mafia thug. Almost killed him. And then in 2015, just a year after, booksellers in Hong Kong disappeared. And even one was abducted from Thailand into China, only reappearing under confessional videos. And why are they abducted and arrested then disappear in China? Is because they sold politically banned books in Hong Kong. So you can see Hong Kong supposedly have freedom, but the Chinese regime is tightening the noose now. And the worst was 2017, when the Beijing under Xi Jinping actually come out and said the Sino-British agreement that was signed in 1984 is actually a historical document. We don't really intend to honor it. So that's a premonition of what's happening in 2019. Because what happened in 2019, the Chinese regime tried to remove the rule of law in Hong Kong completely by proposing a bill that's going to allow extradition of Hong Kongers to mainland China. And the Hong Kong people are very fearful of this because we know in mainland China, there's no rule of law, you can disappear and people don't know where you are for years and you are tortured or even killed in China. So the Hong Kong people came out millions for a whole year to protest, but unfortunately the protest was, they lost this. It was under very severe police crackdown. More than 10,000 people were arrested. And this is actually one of the paintings I did about the protest scene. So to wrap this part up, what happened is under 2020, June 30th, the Chinese regime passed this national security law in Hong Kong to remove the entire freedom and the rule of law that Hong Kong people enjoy. So what happened now is under the national security law, you will just chant any slogans or share any views about the Hong Kong government or the Chinese regime that are critical of them, they can arrest you under national security law. And this person was sentenced to 5 years and 9 months, almost 6 years, just for chanting slogans and sharing political views online. And I think the biggest, I guess, obvious difference is for decades, Hong Kong people have been commemorating the 1989 Tiananmen Square massacre, in which Tiananmen Square in Beijing, tens of thousands were killed when the Chinese people were asking for political reform and also for more end corruption. So you can see on the right, 100 to 200,000 Hong Kongers had been attending this candlelight vigil in Victoria Park for a long time. But then under national security law, this is banned. And what happened is you can see in the next video that even just holding a sign without saying anything, or just with your phone with a light turned on, police will come arrest you. The next is a very short video.
The 30th anniversary of the crackdown saw one of the largest gatherings in the event's history. Since 2019, no official vigil has been held at Victoria.
呢位先生，我已經警告你立即停止，否則我會將你拘捕。我哋，你幫我釋放佢哋。喂，我哋。
So you can see, doing the mildest form of commemoration will lead to arrest. And actually the funny, or you can say tragic thing is even like this car only have the words or the numbers 8964. This car is being towed by the police and he cannot have his license plates just because 89 is and 64 is the year and date of the Tiananmen Square massacre. And you can see how the press freedom has been severely crushed by the Chinese Communist Party. On the left, 2002, under Reporters Without Borders, Hong Kong ranked number 18 in the world for press freedom. And it started to deteriorate. And on the right, 2024, Hong Kong now ranked 135. And it's getting closer and closer to China, which is 172. And what Chinese regime is trying to do is erase history in Hong Kong. So hundreds and thousands of politically sensitive books are removed from the libraries. Professors and teachers who are pro-democracy are fired. And also some are even arrested. And the police chief even warned that in Hong Kong, if you just simply watch a documentary about Hong Kong's political pro-democracy movement, you can be under national security violations. So you cannot even watch a documentary in your home in Hong Kong. And then the new school textbook in primary school, secondary school, etc., are claiming Hong Kong was never a British colony, essentially rewriting the whole history. And under the new Hong Kong, you can see now young children in primary school or elementary school are now dressed up as People's Liberation Army. And in the new syllabus, Hong Kong secondary students, and I know for a fact that eventually even primary school students, like in mainland, they are now being forced to study so-called Xi Jinping thought. And this is an actual translation from an actual textbook. They are teaching things like capitalism will inevitably perish and socialism will inevitably triumph. And that is a constant struggle between capitalism and socialism, but socialism, of course, will triumphantly win out in the end. So this is the type of things they're teaching soon in even primary school. And they have national anthem police patrolling at sports events and schools, arresting people who are not deemed patriotic enough when singing the national anthem. And actually, specific schools has been exposed as singing the anthem too softly after this kind of inspection. And they're installing more CCTV cameras In Hong Kong, 2,000 more in plan just for this year with facial recognition. And to wrap this part up, there's no more rule of law. Police violence is the norm. So for example, this is from 2019. I highlight two words, which is in Cantonese, 浮屍, meaning floating corpse. There were many reports and sightings of corpse floating in the waters near Hong Kong, essentially repeating what happened in Cultural Revolution. When in Hong Kong, we saw a lot of corpse floating from the mainland. Essentially, these are protesters that have been killed, but the police don't investigate. They just claim, oh, they are all no suspicion. They are all suicide. And there have been a lot of sexual violence and rapes of police against not only protesters, but this is after 2019 now. These are just a few examples of police officers gang raping or even sexual assault of 7-year-old girl. There's been a lot of reports. This is the type of people that are being brought into the police force. And all the policemen have petty crimes. They steal 2 cans of abalone and so on and so on. And you can see that also this kind of news is still coming out because Hong Kong is not yet mainland China in terms of press freedom. We still have a little bit of room for this, but sooner or later, even these news won't come out. And then also there's also reports of rapes of juvenile in correctional facilities by the correctional officers. Now this is rape by toothbrush, and this is rape with wooden rod as punishment. And art is banned. For example, this comic of sheep fleeing from wolf is deemed subversive, and the producer or creator of this comic book has been arrested. 5 of them have been arrested because this comic book supposedly incite hatred against China. And music is banned. The song Glory to Hong Kong, which is the protest anthem, which I borrowed for my Hong Kong Rhapsody, you will hear it later, is now banned, and people has been arrested for even just playing the melody alone on a harmonica. So in the next little clip is the end of this part, where in May, just a few months ago, I went to a little tour in UK and also in Hague, and playing protest music from Iran, from Hong Kong, China, and Chopin as well. At the end of the concert, I have everyone rise up and sing this protest anthem, Glory to Hong Kong, which is now banned. And this song, most Hong Kong people would say that this is the national anthem of Hong Kong if Hong Kong were to become an independent country one day. So you can see the person on the right was actually in tears, and it's because this song is a symbol of our unity. And I was actually having everyone singing in different countries, different cities. So I think the power of music is really strong in uniting diaspora communities. so that we can still have our Hong Konger identity, just like what Chopin and Liszt and other composers were doing. So to end this part, I just want to answer the question from Joachim. I'm curious to hear the speaker's perspective on if Taiwan will follow a similar trajectory as Hong Kong or not. So if China take back Taiwan, I'm pretty sure that Taiwan will become like Hong Kong. It's pretty sure 100%. It's because even under the Sino-British Agreement, 1984, it was signed that Hong Kong should have the freedom and rule of law. But the Chinese regime essentially just say that in 2017, say that this is a historical agreement, we don't need to honor it. And they impose national security law to remove all the freedom and all the rule of law that Hong Kong had. So for sure, if China ruled Taiwan, it will be the same fate. So it's really up to Taiwan to see if they can really defend themselves with the help of the West to push back if China did invade Taiwan. So hope that answers your question. What will it take for China to give Hong Kong back? Oh, well, based on what we know of the Chinese Communist Party, China would not give Hong Kong back any freedom, for sure, it would not. Because you can see in around 1950, when the Chinese regime started ruling China, it was doing a lot of persecution of the landowners in Shanghai, the businessmen, the rich people in Shanghai, confiscate their properties, their real estate, and then actually a lot of them were forced to kill themselves, or if they don't kill themselves, they will be killed. And then that happened again later on under the Cultural Revolution, right? Like Cultural Revolution in the 1960s to 1970s, a lot of the intellectuals were persecuted. You cannot, even play a Western instrument is considered subversive. And a lot of these, again, intellectuals or people who are, you can say, sympathetic to the Western tradition and cultures, they are killed. And it happened again with East Turkestan, meaning in China terms, it's called Xinjiang. The Uyghurs are persecuted, they are put in concentration camps. Same thing with Tibet. So China has been, going this pattern again and again and again. So it's now Hong Kong's turn. Hong Kong is now starting to become like East Turkestan or in Tibet and Tibet as well. So I'm pretty 100% sure if Chinese Communist Party, no matter what you do to it, no matter how much sanctions, it will not give Hong Kong freedom. So hope that answered the question. So I'm going to go to the next part of this talk, which is my Hong Kong Rhapsody. So the first composer that impacted me actually was Rhapsody. I actually ran into the tape of his in the 1984 in Hong Kong. And that tape, cassette tape, has the word "People United Will Never Be Defeated." I have no idea what this is. I just somehow, at the age of 11, I was really attracted to this title and I bought the tape. And it's really years later, decades later, I looked into him. I realized he's an American composer. He composed a lot of protest music, advocating for different social causes and political causes. And People United was actually originally a Chilean protest song against the Pinochet dictatorship in the 1970s. Has been translated in many languages in Iran, Argentina, and so on. And Stratsky have written 36 variations. The whole thing is 1 hour long, portraying different aspects of the revolution. So I'm actually playing excerpts of this big work, excerpts of it, and accompanied by visual images, and also the performance artists on stage will be doing dances. So that was people united as sung in Iran, Argentina, and different protests, and how Rhapsody adapted it for his music. And similarly, I borrowed Glory to Hong Kong. So let's hear a clip of Hong Kong people singing it in public in 2019. I have to blur the people's faces because the regime is now using videos like this to arrest people. And next is how I arranged it as the opening of Hong Kong Rhapsody to portray the mass movement. Another tune I borrowed is actually not from Hong Kong, but from Les Miserables, the musical. Do you hear the people sing about the Paris uprising? This song actually had been sung in Hong Kong for a long time after 1997, the handover, especially in the 2014 Umbrella Revolution. So that's why I borrowed this, and you can first hear how it was sung in Hong Kong. So when this melody appeared in Hong Kong Rhapsody, what I had is my right hand high up in the register playing this tune, and my left hand is actually playing Glory to Hong Kong in fragments, as if a musical tribute to Do You Hear the People Sing, the tribute to the bravery and ideals of those 180 years ago in Paris. So another composer, as I mentioned already, is Chopin, that inspired me greatly. You can hear the next piece, which is Heroic Polonaise, one of the other pieces I heard when I was 11 in Hong Kong at that school that I started studying at that time. So I heard this played by the senior students of the school, and was really like hooked by somehow the feeling it generated in me. In the next clip is Hong Kong Rhapsody. What I did is I take Glory to Hong Kong and mix it up with Did You Hear the People Sing, and also added this sense of heroism from Chopin's Polonaise. So you can see influence of Chopin, but in a modern way. So what I did is I actually put the lyrics of the lines of the song that I borrowed for each phrase, so you can follow exactly the musical meaning of each. In the next little clip is a short motif from Glory to Hong Kong. I'm going to play it looped a few times so it registers in your head. Then I'm going to play how I use it in Glory to Hong Kong, kind of like what Beethoven did, taking short motifs and expand it into long passage. So another composer that influenced me greatly was Franz Liszt. Actually, he has this 19 Hungarian Rhapsodies that he wrote. And the next clip is Funeralize, which is his musical reaction to the 1848 failed Hungarian Revolution against the Austrian rule. So another very political piece, and his musical mourning to the three friends of his who are impacted. Two were killed, and one lived in exile. So in the next clip is the Heroic Warrior March from this piece by Franz Liszt. Focus on the left hand, you'll hear a repeating pattern, which I borrowed for my Hong Kong Rhapsody. So for the next clip, you'll first hear Glory to Hong Kong, the two lines that I borrowed, and how I used this idea of the left hand repeating pattern to transform that into a cry for battle. And then we're now moving to the second part of the piece. In the next little segment is my transition in Hong Kong Rhapsody, where I transform the songs to describe tear gas. In the middle section, I borrowed this Christian song called Sing Hallelujah to the Lord, because it was sung a lot in 2019 by the Christians. So let's hear it on the streets by the Hong Kong people singing this. And in my Hong Kong Rhapsody, I mixed up Hallelujah to the Lord, Do You Hear the People Sing, and Glory to Hong Kong, like a musical collage. And you can hear how I fragment different melodies and recombine them in new ways to convey new meanings. So in here, combining Do You Hear the People Sing with Sing Hallelujah to the Lord seems to be asking our Creator, our Lord, our God to, do you really hear our plea? You'll see how this works in the next clip. So you can see after Sing Hallelujah to the Lord, I quoted from Glory to Hong Kong, like ye rise again, not to be slaves again, as if the Lord or the God is commanding us to rise up. I'm not a Christian, but I find this extremely moving, and I borrowed this idea into my piece. In the next clip is also from Franz Liszt, from the piece about the 1848 revolution. You'll hear the opening of that piece where is a funeral march with the left hand playing very deep and low bells, like funeral bells. And then a dotted rhythm, which is like short, long rhythm to convey in piano music, often like the funeral march. So you'll hear that right now. So I borrowed the same idea and transformed Glory to Hong Kong into a funeral march, and the dotted rhythm as it like a heartbeat, which I slow down gradually to death. So after death, the music is going to go to convey a sense of resurrection, renewal of life. So in the next part of Hong Kong Rhapsody, my left hand borrowed these lines from Do You Hear the People Sing? Echoes the beating of the drums, there is a life about to start. And my right hand play a tune of Glory to Hong Kong together. So you'll hear in the next clip, first, my left hand. On the right there is my painting to convey this sense of resurrection, using the phoenix as a symbol. And then now you hear my right hand borrowing from this line from Glory to Hong Kong. And the next clip is how I actually use it in Hong Kong Rhapsody, the two combined. First, you will hear the two separately, and then the two combined, and you will just follow the text on the screen, you'll follow it. And then after renewal and resurrection, we'll fight again and liberate Hong Kong. So this ends my walkthrough of Hong Kong Rhapsody. You can always go to YouTube, just search Hong Kong Rhapsody Record Choi, you will find it. And to end this part, I'd like to play a short clip, about 1.5 minutes, of me playing my music and also bringing my arts to different cities in the world. So I hope to see you in Toronto at my concert upcoming November 2nd, 7 p.m. You can go to my website for details. So thank you everyone for coming. If you have questions, please let me know. And pass back to you, Kathleen.
Well, thank you very much. Ricker, can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
Okay, good. So I have a couple of questions for you.
Yes.
You spent your childhood in Hong Kong, and you came over when you were about 20 or so, maybe roughly 20 years old.
I came when I was 13 years old.
When we were 13, that was it. Okay. Can you tell us something about what you remember about actually living in Hong Kong back then?
So when I was in Hong Kong, I remember I often get very stressed. Like physically, I have a lot of problem. I would like vomit, I would have nightmare, and it's because of school. Like school in Hong Kong was extremely stressed. So much homework, you have to study so many subjects. There's no time for leisure. So that's what I remember mostly. But then when I came back to Hong Kong, went back, last time was 2005. Despite me left Hong Kong for a long time, I will still remember how to take certain bus, go back to where I lived, despite left so long. And I had a lot of fond memories of riding in school bus and so on. So I think it's kind of like a love and hate like a feeling, because in Hong Kong it was like very stressful when I was actually living there. But now looking back, there's a lot of places I want to visit, and like it is kind of interesting. Yeah, and then somehow in 2019 I have this big eruption of feelings for Hong Kong when they rise up against the dictatorship. I find it very interesting. Like, I think like maybe a psychologist can help me analyze.
So you did go back at one point.
Yes, I went back 3 times, 2002, 2004, and 5. But each time just a few days. Back then, actually, I went back to Hong Kong to just stay a few days and usually join some tour to go visit different places in China.
Could
Yeah.
you feel
At
any?
that time, I wasn't like that political about Hong Kong versus China. It wasn't like that. So I actually went to China and toured the Great Wall of China, went to Beijing and so on. Like that was back then. And actually, Hong Kong people in 2008, when we had the Olympics in Beijing, Hong Kong people were very proud at that time. They felt that, oh, China showed the world how great we are, especially in the opening ceremony. If you remember 2008, it was like really spectacular opening ceremony. So it all goes downhill around 2012. That's when Xi Jinping started ruling the regime, ruling China. And the crackdown starts around 2012.
So I know you've said that there's no hope for Hong Kong.
I think the question was, will China give Hong Kong back its freedom? Like, if China, to means Chinese Communist Party, still ruling China, then it would not give back Hong Kong any freedom. But if, let's say, there's a regime change, or the Chinese Communist Party is weakened, so that China is actually broken up into different regions, like for example, East Turkestan or Xinjiang become an independent country, Tibet become an independent country. That's what they want for decades. And then Hong Kong may become an independent as well. We don't know. But then it's only situation like this when happen, then Hong Kong can have freedom. If it's under CCP rule, then for sure no.
So is Xi Jinping in there for an unlimited time, or does he have?
Yes, he's there unlimited time until he himself step down or he dies. But he is there for life.
Okay, so it's not anytime soon.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. In Soviet Russia broke up, and I don't think people could have predicted that.
Yeah, but from what I recall, Soviet broke up because the was it Gorbachev, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was putting up modernizing Soviet Union. He was opening up the economy, and even politically, he was opening up. So that was like the chance for different regions to break away from the Soviet Union. Because when they tried that and the Soviet did not send in tanks to suppress them, then the Soviet regime break down. So I mean, if that happened, then, you know, of course, then hopefully Hong Kong will separate from the Chinese regime. But you need someone like that, like Gorbachev, who is like open-minded, you know, back then, to not send in tanks when a region wants to break away. You need someone like that. But in China, I don't, like, we cannot predict if anyone like that will. Even Deng Xiaoping supposedly was more moderate, right? But he still sent in tanks to kill all the students who are protesting for more political freedom. So in China, I don't see, you know, so far anyone who remotely can open up politically like that.
No, it's far too dangerous.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for the CCP, yes.
Well, I'd like to take a moment to say, Ricker, that I'm very pleased that you agreed to join us today and give us this presentation. I found it very moving and it's sometimes very shocking. Even though I've seen clips before because we've had 2 rehearsals to make sure the sound works and so on. And I saw some of this and I was moved then. I'm moved again now when I see it again. It's very fresh and hard material. And on behalf of Toronto Mensa, please accept our thanks for your presentation today. And as a sign of our appreciation, we will be sending you a small gift.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you weren't expecting that.
Wow, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And thanks so much for having me, sharing my story, my music, and my, you know, relationship with Hong Kong. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Ricker, and thank you very much to our people in the audience for being here and for listening and for hanging in. And thank you to those of you who participated more actively by putting in questions, which I believe we have answered. And you have Ricker's email address and you have my email address if you wanted to do any further follow-up after the presentation is over. I think there's one more in there. I gather it's somebody saying thank you. I'll just check. Yes.
Thank you everyone for coming. Really great.
Will a link to the presentation be shared? Yes, it will be. So thank you very much to everyone. Thank you to Ricker.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye everyone.
Bye-bye.